Okay, everyone knows the story of the rise and fall of arcades. Starting out as simple coin-operated gambling machines, they later evolved with the launch of games such as Space Invaders in 1978 and Galaxian in 1979. These games were primitive, but new and exciting. In 1994, the arcade industry entered a slump of low arcade attendance and low spending per visit. As the home console scene, being led by the likes of Nintendo and Sega, rose up, the arcade scene became more and more niche. It's safe to say that due to the huge home console boom, arcades just aren't a huge scene anymore. So what's the current state of the arcade scene in the UK? I went to Arcade Club in Bury, Manchester to get hands-on with what their website describes as a modern and classic arcade. After walking into the unassuming 3-story building and climbing the staircase to the 3rd floor, I was greeted with hordes of classic arcade machines lined up side by side. These include some original and restored machines, imported classic Japanese style arcade cabs, and also a huge LAN setup. The LAN setup is accompanied by a diner-style cafe too, which felt strangely bizarre for an arcade. Little did I know, that was just a taster for what was in store. Dropping down to the 2nd floor, I walked in to find what can only be described as a nerd slice of heaven. The 2nd floor, also known as the Modern Arcade Room, features several VR and PC gaming setups, classic consoles lined up against the wall, and back-to-back imported Japanese arcade cabinets for renowned titles like Taiko no Tatsujin and my personal favourite, Darius Burst. This floor also featured a bar and diner area. It's important to mention every machine I've seen on both floors is set to free play mode, which means you can just jump in and play a game without paying a penny. Your fees are all covered at the ticket office before you even enter the arcade. So the Modern Arcade, as you might expect, incorporates home consoles and imports to provide a unique hangout-like experience. It's the kind of place you could go to, buy a couple drinks and play some rounds of Mario Kart with your friends. Arcade Club, while utilising both home consoles and arcade cabinets, clearly aims to provide a unique social experience, which is a trend I've noticed in other similar areas of the current arcade scene. Barcades have been a small but rising type of arcade over the past few years. As the name implies, barcades are a hybrid of the arcade and bar experiences, obviously targeting an older audience. Typically situated around London and the south of the UK, they make use of a smaller space by advertising themselves as specifically a bar plus arcade combo. Barcades place a lot of focus on the social and drinking experience being effectively a vehicle for gaming. You'll notice a theme so far then, I hope, considering that's my whole conclusion. Both the modern arcade and the barcade place a lot of emphasis on a social experience. Of course, arcades have always been a social thing. People tell stories about how the new Space Invaders game launched and flocks of children would go to it, but now it's somewhat ironically a more mature experience. From including a diner and drinks area to being a half and half mix of bar and arcade, the average age of arcade consumers has gone up, and so the scene had to grow up too. So, thinking back on the arcade scene slump in 1994, what do you think the future of arcades is? Honestly, as much as I hate to admit it, I feel a certain degree of unsustainability. There's never going to be a shortage of people playing games, especially as gaming has become a popular hobby to have. But having 2 huge rooms full to the brim of arcades, home consoles and VR setups seems potentially incredibly expensive, even just the electricity bills alone. As home consoles become more and more viable and offer a personal experience, I feel that consumers are far more likely to make the trip special occasion with friends. That said, I want to be proven wrong. If modern arcades become unsustainable, like classic arcades were, how are they going to adapt? Arcades of the future could lean far more heavily on providing experiences that aren't available at home. Arcade Club, for example, offered a unique VR experience with both Oculus Rift and PSVR setups. But with the high cost and space requirement of VR nowadays, I like to imagine the arcade of the future would be able to offer soundproofed VR spaces, specifically to offer that unique experience. Though, as the commercial availability of VR headsets drops, who's to say that isn't also unsustainable? Thanks for watching, folks. If you want to discuss the video, you can head down to the comments underneath it or drop a message to one of my many social medias.